He was firing everyone, until one woman spoke and the Billionaire CEO stopped cold. The conference room on the 42nd floor of Richardson Technologies had never felt so cold. Gordon Richardson stood at the head of the mahogany table, his steel-gray eyes scanning the faces of his marketing department like a judge preparing to deliver a death sentence. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seattle's skyline stretched beneath a blanket of October rain, the Space Needle barely visible through the storm clouds. His jaw was set, his expensive suit immaculate, and his voice when he finally spoke carried the kind of frost that made grown men's hands tremble. "You're all fired," he said simply. "Security will escort you out within the hour." The silence that followed was deafening. 23 people, 23 careers, 23 lives appended in 4 words. But then, from the far end of the table, a woman's voice cut through the shock like a knife through silk, calm, clear, and utterly fearless. "No." Gordon Richardson's head turned slowly, his eyes narrowing on the source of that single syllable. And for the first time in 15 years of ruthless corporate dominance, someone had dared to tell him no. What would you do if you were in that room? If your entire career hung by a thread and the most powerful man in Seattle's tech industry had just severed it? Would you stay silent, or would you speak up knowing it could cost you everything? Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And if you love stories of courage, unexpected romance, and the power of standing up for what's right, hit that subscribe button right now because tomorrow we're dropping another story you absolutely won't want to miss. Karen Reynolds had worked at Richardson Technologies for exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. Not that she was counting, but when you loved your job as much as she did, every day mattered. She'd started as a junior marketing analyst fresh out of the University of Washington, armed with a master's degree in communications and dreams bigger than the Pike Place market on a Saturday morning. Her apartment in Capitol Hill was tiny, her student loans were massive, and her coffee addiction was legendary among her coworkers. But she was good at what she did. Brilliant, actually. The campaign she designed for Richardson Technologies' new AI software had increased client engagement by 47%. She'd stayed late into countless nights at the office, watching the city lights flicker to life from her cubicle, surviving on Thai takeout from that place on Broadway, and the belief that hard work eventually paid off. She turned down dates, missed her sister's wedding rehearsal dinner, and once fell asleep on the bus to Ballard because she'd worked a 36-hour stretch to meet a deadline. And now Gordon Richardson, the man who'd built a tech empire from nothing, who'd graced the cover of Forbes 3 times, who could make or break careers with a single decision, was throwing it all away. Throwing them all away. The morning had started normally enough. Karen had grabbed her usual oat milk latte from the Starbucks Reserve on Capitol Hill, the one where the barista knew her order by heart. She'd taken the light rail to Westlake, walked the 3 blocks to Richardson Tower, and ridden the elevator to the 42nd floor while mentally preparing for the quarterly review meeting. The marketing department had exceeded every target that quarter. They'd landed the Cascade medical account, expanded into the Portland market, and their social media engagement was up 63%. So when Gordon Richardson strode into the conference room at exactly 9 a.m., his presence filling the space like a storm front moving across Puget Sound, Karen had expected praise. Maybe even a bonus announcement. Instead, she got a massacre. The Jensen account was lost yesterday, Gordon had announced without preamble, his voice devoid of emotion. $3.7 million in annual revenue. Gone. The team had exchanged confused glances. The Jensen account wasn't even handled by marketing. It was enterprise sales, a completely different department. Our competitors are outmaneuvering us at every turn, Gordon continued, his hands clasped behind his back as he paced before the windows. Market share is slipping. Innovation is stagnating. And when I look at this team, all I see are the symptoms of a company that's grown complacent. Karen's colleague David had started to speak. "Mr. Richardson, if I could just explain our quarterly results." "I don't care about your quarterly results," Gordon cut him off, his tone like ice cracking underfoot. "I care about dominance. I care about excellence. And what I'm seeing in this room is neither." That's when he'd said it. "You're all fired." But Karen Reynolds had spent 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days building something she believed in. She'd sacrificed relationships, sleep, and countless hours of her life not for a paycheck, but because she believed in the mission of Richardson Technologies. She believed in creating technology that actually helped people, that solved real problems, that made the world incrementally better. So when Gordon Richardson declared them all expendable, something inside her snapped. "No," she said, and the word hung in the air like a challenge. Gordon's head turned, and for a moment, Karen saw something flicker in those cold gray eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or anger. His gaze locked onto hers, and she felt the full weight of his attention like a physical force. "Excuse me." His voice was dangerously quiet. Karen stood up slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs, but her voice steady. "I said no. You're making a mistake." Someone gasped. David grabbed her arm, whispering urgently, "Karen, don't." She gently pulled away, keeping her eyes on Gordon. "With all due respect, Mr. Richardson, firing this entire team won't solve your problem. Because we're not the problem." The temperature in the room seemed to drop another 10 degrees. Gordon took 3 steps toward her, his jaw tight. "Is that right, miss?" "Reynolds. Karen Reynolds." "And yes, that's right. And you've been with this company for what, 3 years?" 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. A ghost of something, amusement, intrigue, crossed his face before disappearing. "And in that vast expanse of experience, you've determined that you know better than I do how to run my company?" Karen took a breath. This was it. The moment she either crashed and burned or changed everything. "I know that the Jensen account was lost because their CEO's daughter is engaged to the VP at TechCore Solutions. I know because I follow industry news, relationships, and connections. That loss had nothing to do with our performance and everything to do with personal loyalty." She saw Gordon's eyes narrow slightly. She'd surprised him. "I also know," she continued, gaining confidence, "that our market share isn't slipping, it's consolidating. We've deliberately pulled back from 3 low-margin sectors to focus on high-value enterprise clients, exactly as outlined in your 5-year strategic plan from 2022. The plan you personally approved." The room was dead silent. No one even seemed to be breathing. "And as for innovation stagnating," Karen said, her voice stronger now, "the AI integration platform we launched last quarter is being hailed as industry-leading. MIT Technology Review called it revolutionary. We have 16 patents pending. Our R&D pipeline is the strongest it's been in 5 years." Gordon had gone very still, his expression unreadable. "If we're so successful, why did our stock price drop 8% last month?" "Because TechCore spread rumors about our client retention rates on 3 financial blogs, all of which were later retracted as unverified. The stock recovered 6% within 2 weeks once the truth came out. It's market manipulation, not performance failure." For a long moment, Gordon just stared at her. Then he turned to the rest of the team. "Did any of you know this?" The silence was answer enough. He looked back at Karen, and for the first time, something other than ice showed in his eyes. "My office. Now. The rest of you stay here." As Karen followed Gordon Richardson out of the conference room, her legs felt like rubber, but she forced them to stay steady. Behind her, she heard the explosion of whispers, but she didn't look back. She'd either just saved her career or ended it spectacularly. Gordon's office occupied the entire northwest corner of the 42nd floor. It was a study in minimalist luxury, clean lines, dark wood, and those same floor-to-ceiling windows that gave a panoramic view of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains beyond. On clear days, you could probably see all the way to Bainbridge Island. Today, the rain streaked down the glass like tears. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "Sit." Karen sat, her hands folded in her lap to keep them from shaking. Gordon moved to the windows, hands in his pockets, his back to her. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared out at the storm. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, quieter, more thoughtful. "My father built this company in a garage in Georgetown," he said. "Before it was trendy, before tech transformed Seattle into what it is today. He worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week. He missed my childhood, missed my mother's last 5 years before cancer took her. All for this company." Karen stayed silent, sensing he needed to say this. "When he died, I was 27 years old and this company was worth $12 million. That was 15 years ago. Today, we're worth $3.2 billion. He turned to face her, and she was struck by how tired he suddenly looked. "Do you know what that kind of growth requires?" Miss Reynolds? Vision, she said softly. And ruthlessness. Exactly. Ruthlessness. The willingness to make hard decisions that other people won't make. To cut away the dead weight, even when it's painful. He moved to his desk, leaning against it, arms crossed. I've fired 743 people over 15 years. Every single one was necessary. Every single one made this company stronger. But this time it's not necessary, Karen said. This time you're reacting out of fear. His eyes flashed. I don't fear anything. Everyone fears something, Mr. Richardson. And right now, you're afraid that you're losing control. That despite everything you've built, despite all the sacrifices, it might not be enough. So you're looking for someone to blame. The words hung between them, dangerous and true. Gordon studied her for what felt like an eternity. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, a short, sharp sound. You have no idea who you're talking to, do you? I could end your career with a phone call. Make sure you never work in tech again. Yes, you could, Karen agreed. But you won't. Why not? Because you didn't get where you are by being stupid. And firing someone for telling you the truth would be incredibly stupid. For the first time since she'd met him 3 years ago, Gordon Richardson smiled. Really smiled. It transformed his entire face, softening the harsh lines, reaching his eyes, making him look younger and infinitely more human. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, he said. My roommate says both. He laughed again, and the sound surprised her. Tell me about the Anderson campaign. Karen blinked at the subject change. The dental AI software? Yes. I heard you spearheaded that campaign. Increased their client acquisition by 62% in 8 months. 67%, actually. Walk me through your strategy. And so she did. For the next 45 minutes, Karen explained her approach to market segmentation, brand positioning, and integrated digital campaigns. Gordon asked sharp, probing questions, challenging every assumption, pushing her to defend her decisions. It felt less like an interrogation and more like a chess match, each of them testing the other's thinking. She'd almost forgotten about the 22 people waiting in the conference room. Finally, Gordon leaned back in his chair, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. Why marketing, Miss Reynolds? With your analytical skills, you could have gone into finance, made 3 times what we're paying you. Because marketing isn't just about selling products, Karen said. It's about telling stories. About connecting people to solutions that genuinely improve their lives. When done right, it's not manipulation, it's matchmaking. Finding the right solution for the right person at the right time. You really believe that? I do. Gordon was quiet for a moment, then stood. Come with me. They walked back to the conference room, where the team sat in tense silence. Everyone looked up as they entered, fear and hope warring on their faces. Gordon moved to the head of the table, and Karen stood off to the side, unsure of her role in whatever was about to happen. I'm not firing you, Gordon announced. Any of you. The collective exhale was audible. But that doesn't mean we're okay, he continued. Miss Reynolds was the only person in this room who had the full picture of what's actually happening in our industry, with our competitors, with our positioning. The only one who could defend our performance with facts rather than excuses. He let that sink in. Effective immediately, Miss Reynolds is your new department head. She'll report directly to me. And if any of you have a problem with that, there's the door. Karen felt the room's eyes turn to her, a mixture of shock, resentment, and in a few cases, relief. David looked like he'd been slapped. He'd been angling for that promotion for 6 months. Mr. Richardson, Karen started, I appreciate your confidence, but... My office. Tomorrow. 6 a.m. We have work to do. He was already heading for the door. Don't be late, Miss Reynolds. And just like that, he was gone, leaving Karen standing before her new team, some of whom had been working there since before she'd graduated college, with absolutely no idea what she'd just gotten herself into. The rest of that day passed in a blur. Some colleagues congratulated her, their smiles not quite reaching their eyes. Others avoided her entirely. David packed up his desk and left without a word, accepting a position at a competitor by end of day. Karen felt guilty about that, even though she hadn't asked for any of this. That night, she sat in her Capitol Hill apartment, a glass of wine in hand, staring out at the city lights and replaying the day's events. Her phone buzzed with texts from her sister. "Did you really tell off Gordon Richardson?" "Karen, are you insane?" "Mom is proud and terrified in equal measure. Call me." But Karen couldn't call anyone yet. She needed to think. In the span of 8 hours, she'd gone from junior analyst to department head, from anonymous employee to someone directly in Gordon Richardson's orbit. The man was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure, capable of building empires and destroying careers with the same cold efficiency. And yet, when he'd smiled in his office, she'd glimpsed something else. Something almost vulnerable. She was in dangerous territory, and she knew it. The next morning, Karen arrived at Richardson Tower at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes early. The building was eerily quiet, only security and cleaning crews occupying the early hours. She rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, her reflection in the polished doors showing a woman in a navy blazer and carefully applied makeup, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. Gordon's assistant wasn't in yet, but his office door was open, light spilling into the dim corridor. Karen knocked softly on the doorframe. "You're early," Gordon said without looking up from his computer. "Good." She stepped inside, and he gestured to a chair. This time, he sat across from her rather than behind his desk, a small table between them with 2 cups of coffee already poured. "How do you take it?" he asked. "Oat milk, no sugar." He slid one of the cups toward her. "Your file says you worked on the Jefferson Medical integration last year. Tell me why it failed." Karen wrapped her hands around the warm cup. So this was how it was going to be. No pleasantries, no easing in, just straight to business. "It didn't fail," she said. "It was terminated when Jefferson merged with Cascade Health and they standardized on their existing systems. We knew it was a risk going in, but the contract terms protected us. We actually came out ahead financially. But we lost a showcase client. We lost visibility in one sector. But 3 months later, we landed Cascade's enterprise contract, which was worth 4 times what Jefferson was paying us. Sometimes you have to lose a battle to win a war." Gordon's expression remained neutral, but she saw the slight nod. "What's the biggest problem facing this company right now?" Karen didn't hesitate. "You." His eyebrows rose. "Explain." "You've built Richardson Technologies through force of will and singular vision. That worked brilliantly when you were smaller, more agile. But at $3 billion, the company is too big for one person to control every decision. You've created a culture where people are afraid to bring you problems, so they hide them until they explode. Like Jensen. If my VP of sales had told me about the personal connection earlier. He didn't tell you because he was afraid. Because the last person who brought you a problem without a solution was reassigned to our Spokane office." Karen leaned forward. "You're brilliant, Mr. Richardson. Possibly the smartest person I've ever met. But you've surrounded yourself with people who are terrified to tell you the truth. Except you. Except me." Gordon was quiet for a moment, studying her over the rim of his coffee cup. Outside, dawn was beginning to break over the Cascades, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "My father used to say that the hardest part of success is knowing who to trust," he finally said. "When you have money and power, everyone wants something from you. Everyone has an angle." "What's my angle?" Karen asked. "I'm still figuring that out. Maybe I don't have one. Maybe I just care about doing good work." "Nobody's that simple, Miss Reynolds. Maybe you've been dealing with complicated people for too long." Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but close. "Perhaps. What's your plan for the department?" They spent the next 3 hours dissecting every aspect of the marketing operation. Gordon challenged every assumption, questioned every strategy, pushed her to think 5 steps ahead. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. By the time his assistant arrived at 8:30, looking shocked to see Karen there, they'd mapped out a complete restructuring of the department's approach. "Same time tomorrow," Gordon said as Karen stood to leave. "And Miss Reynolds." "Yes. Thank you. For yesterday." The word seemed to cost him something. This man who clearly wasn't accustomed to thanking anyone. Karen nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and left. This became their routine. Every morning at 6 a.m., Karen met with Gordon to review strategies, analyze markets, plan campaigns. The sessions were intense, sometimes contentious, but always productive. She learned how his mind worked, the way he could see patterns others missed, how he thought 3 moves ahead like a grandmaster playing chess. But she also saw the loneliness in him. The way he stayed in the office until 9 or 10 every night. How his assistant's calendar was packed with meetings but contained no personal appointments, no dinners with friends, no life outside these walls. 3 weeks into her new role, they were working late on the West Coast expansion strategy. Most of the building had emptied hours ago, leaving just the 2 of them in his office with Chinese takeout from that place in the International District and a whiteboard covered in strategic diagrams. "Why don't you have anyone?" Karen asked suddenly, then immediately regretted it when Gordon's head snapped up. "Excuse me. I'm sorry. That was too personal. Forget I." "No." He set down his pen, his expression unreadable. "You've earned the right to ask personal questions. The answer is simple. I had someone once. She left because I loved this company more than I loved her. And she was right to leave." "When?" "5 years ago. Her name was Rachel. She was a corporate attorney, brilliant and beautiful and patient beyond measure. She gave me 3 years, waiting for me to prioritize her, to actually build a life together instead of just talking about it." He stood, moving to the windows. "The night she left, we had reservations at Canlis for her birthday. I canceled because of a crisis in our Tokyo office. It wasn't even a real crisis. My team could have handled it. But I couldn't let go of control long enough to have a 2-hour dinner." Karen moved to stand beside him, both of them looking out at the city lights reflected in the waters of Puget Sound. "She said I was more married to this company than I could ever be to her," Gordon continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "She was right. I am married to it. It's all I have. All I've built. Without it, I'm just a man who sacrificed everything for success and ended up alone." "That doesn't have to be permanent," Karen said softly. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch, a hunger, not for power or success, but for connection. For someone who saw him as more than just Gordon Richardson, billionaire CEO. "Doesn't it?" he asked. "I'm 42 years old, Miss Reynolds. Set in my ways. Married to my work. What kind of person would sign up for that life?" The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Karen knew she should step back, maintain professional distance, but she couldn't seem to move. "Maybe someone who understands that work you love isn't a burden," she said. "Maybe someone who sees the passion behind the ruthlessness, the vision behind the cold exterior." Karen. It was the first time he'd used her first name, and the intimacy of it sent a shiver through her. "We can't." "I know. It would be complicated." "I know. People would talk. They'd say you slept your way to the promotion, that I'm taking advantage." "I know all of that." She turned to face him fully. "But I also know that I haven't been able to stop thinking about you for 3 weeks. That these morning meetings are the best part of my day. That when you smile, really smile, it makes me forget how to breathe." Gordon's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheek with unexpected gentleness. "This is a terrible idea. Probably the worst. We should maintain professional boundaries." "We absolutely should." He kissed her anyway, and it was like falling off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating and inevitable all at once. Karen's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and Gordon's arms wrapped around her waist like he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gordon rested his forehead against hers. "This complicates everything," he said. "I know. We need rules. Boundaries. This stays completely separate from work." "Agreed. And if you ever feel like I'm using my position inappropriately." Karen put her finger against his lips, silencing him. "Gordon, I'm here because I want to be. Not because you're my boss. Because you're brilliant and maddening, and underneath all that ice, you're one of the most passionate people I've ever met." He kissed her again, softer this time, and Karen felt something in her chest crack open, something she hadn't even realized was locked away. They talked until 3 in the morning that night, curled up on the leather couch in his office, sharing stories and secrets and dreams they'd never told anyone else. Karen learned that Gordon played piano, that he'd wanted to be an architect before his father's death changed everything, that he donated anonymously to over 30 charities but couldn't stand the social performances of fundraising galas. Gordon learned that Karen had a younger sister with cerebral palsy, that her parents had sacrificed everything to pay for treatment, that her drive to succeed wasn't about money or prestige but about being able to support them the way they'd supported her family. That she wrote poetry she never showed anyone, and that she was terrified of failing the people who believed in her. Including me? Gordon asked, playing with her hair. Especially you. You couldn't fail me if you tried, Karen. You're the first person in 15 years who's made me want something besides success. What do you want? He pulled her closer. This. You. A reason to leave the office before midnight. It should have been perfect. And for 6 weeks it was. They were scrupulously careful at work. No lingering glances, no inappropriate touching, nothing that would give them away. Karen worked harder than ever, determined to prove she'd earned her position on merit alone. The department thrived under her leadership. Client satisfaction scores hit all-time highs, 3 major campaigns exceeded projections, and team morale improved dramatically. But outside the office, they built something precious and private. Gordon took her sailing on Puget Sound on Sunday mornings, the two of them racing against the wind with Seattle disappearing behind them. Karen introduced him to her favorite hole-in-the-wall restaurants in Capitol Hill and Columbia City, places where nobody recognized him and they could just be two people falling in love. Because that's what was happening, whether they'd intended it or not. Karen fell for the man who brought her coffee every morning exactly how she liked it, who remembered every detail of every conversation, who looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the world. Gordon fell for the woman who challenged him, who made him laugh, who saw past his armor to the lonely man beneath. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and in the pressure cooker of corporate politics, nothing stays hidden forever. It was David who figured it out first. He'd taken a position at TechCore Solutions and was making it his mission to undermine Richardson Technologies however he could. When he saw Karen leaving Gordon's building in Lower Queen and early one Saturday morning, the building where Gordon's penthouse occupied the top floor, he put the pieces together. The rumors started subtly. Whispers in the break room. Knowing glances when Karen presented in meetings. Then someone created a fake social media account that posted a blurry photo of Karen and Gordon at a restaurant in Ballard with a caption, "How to get promoted at Richardson Tech, a masterclass." Karen first heard about it from her friend Jessica in accounting. "I'm so sorry," Jessica said, showing her the post on her phone. "It's already been shared like 300 times. Karen felt like the floor had dropped out beneath her. Everything they'd been so careful to protect, reduced to office gossip and insinuation. She went straight to Gordon's office, not caring who saw her. His assistant tried to stop her, but Karen pushed past. Gordon was on a video call with investors. He looked up surprised, and must have seen something in her face because he immediately said, "Gentlemen, something urgent has come up. We'll reconvene this afternoon," and ended the call. Karen, what? She showed him the post. Watched his expression harden as he read, his jaw tightening. "I'll have legal shut this down within the hour," he said. "Sue for defamation. Track down whoever created the account." "That won't matter," Karen interrupted. "The damage is done. Everyone thinks I slept my way to this job. Everyone who matters knows you earned this position. Do they? Or do they think I'm just good at manipulating you?" Gordon stood, moving around the desk toward her. "Karen." "This is exactly what we were afraid of," she said, her voice breaking. "Everyone's going to say you're taking advantage of your position, or I'm taking advantage of you, or both. It taints everything we've worked for. I don't care what people say." "Well, I do." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I care because I've worked my entire life to build my career on merit. Because my parents sacrificed everything so I could have opportunities they never had. And now it's all being reduced to who I'm sleeping with." Gordon's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "So what are you saying?" "I don't know," Karen said honestly. I need to think." She left before he could respond, taking the stairs down 42 flights because she couldn't stand the thought of riding the elevator with people who were probably already whispering about her. The next few days were torture. Karen threw herself into work, staying late, arriving early, volunteering for every difficult project. She was determined to prove herself all over again, to show that her relationship with Gordon had nothing to do with her professional capabilities. But Gordon was pulling away. He was cordial in meetings, professional in emails, but the warmth was gone. No more early morning strategy sessions. No more lingering glances. He was protecting them both the only way he knew how, by building his walls back up. Karen told herself it was for the best. That they'd known from the beginning this was complicated. That maybe some things weren't meant to work out, no matter how much you wanted them to. But at night, alone in her apartment, she cried into her pillow and wondered if she just made the biggest mistake of her life. 2 weeks after the photo appeared online, Karen was working late when Gordon's assistant called her extension. "Miss Reynolds, Mr. Richardson needs to see you in his office." Karen's heart jumped. "Now." "Yes, ma'am." She took the elevator up, her stomach in knots. It was after 8 p.m., the floor was empty, just like that night 6 weeks ago when everything had changed. Gordon was standing at the windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city. He didn't turn when she entered. "Close the door," he said quietly. Karen did, then stood awkwardly near his desk, waiting. "I've been thinking," Gordon said, "about what you said. About the whispers and the assumptions and how it affects your reputation." "Gordon, let me finish." He finally turned to face her, and she was shocked by how exhausted he looked. "You were right. Being with me does complicate your career. People will always question whether you earned your place or whether I gave it to you. It's not fair, but it's reality." Karen felt her heart begin to crack. This was it. He was ending it. "So I've made a decision," Gordon continued. "I'm stepping down as CEO." Karen's world tilted. "What?" "I'm appointing a new CEO, Catherine Walsh from our Austin office. She's brilliant, fair, and has no connection to either of us. She'll be my boss, technically, though I'll stay on as chairman of the board." He moved closer to Karen, his eyes intense. "If I'm not your boss, the power dynamic disappears. If I'm not CEO, people can't accuse you of leveraging our relationship for advancement. Gordon, you can't give up running your company." "I'm not giving it up. I'm restructuring it. Something you told me I needed to do anyway, remember? Decentralizing control. Building a leadership team that's not dependent on me for every decision." He took her hands in his. "And maybe, just maybe, finally learning that there's more to life than quarterly earnings reports and market share." Tears were streaming down Karen's face. "You'd do that? Give up being CEO?" "Karen, I built this company as a monument to my father, to prove I could take his legacy and make it something extraordinary. And I did that. But I realized something these past 2 weeks without you. What's the point of building an empire if you have no one to share it with?" "What if it doesn't work?" she whispered. "What if we fail anyway?" "Then we fail," Gordon said simply. "But at least we fail together. At least we tried." He cupped her face in his hands, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "I love you, Karen Reynolds. I think I have since the moment you stood up in that conference room and told me no. And I'm tired of being too afraid to fight for something that matters." "I love you too," Karen said, and kissed him like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. The announcement of Gordon's transition sent shockwaves through the company and the tech industry at large. Forbes ran a cover story, "The Billionaire Who Chose Love Over Power." Business Insider called it the most romantic corporate restructuring in history. But inside Richardson Technologies, something remarkable happened. With Catherine Walsh as CEO, the culture began to shift. People felt empowered to bring forward ideas and problems. Innovation flourished. The company didn't just survive Gordon's step back, it thrived. And Gordon discovered something he'd never expected. He liked not being in charge of everything. He loved mentoring young entrepreneurs, serving on boards of nonprofits, and having time to actually live life instead of just working through it. Karen continued to excel in her role, earning respect not because of who she was dating, but because of the results she delivered. The whispers eventually died down, replaced by grudging respect and, in some cases, admiration. A year after that fateful day in the conference room, Gordon and Karen stood on the deck of a yacht in the San Juan Islands, surrounded by their families and closest friends. The sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in impossible shades of orange and pink. "Gordon Richardson," the officiant said, "do you take Karen Reynolds to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," Gordon said, his voice strong and sure, his eyes never leaving Karen's face. "And Karen Reynolds, do you take Gordon Richardson to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Karen thought about that day in the conference room when she'd said no, when she'd risked everything to speak truth to power. And now she was saying yes to a future she'd never imagined but couldn't imagine living without. "I do," she said. When they kissed, their guests erupted in applause, but Karen barely heard it. She was too focused on the man in front of her, the brilliant, complex, formerly cold billionaire who'd learned to choose love over control, who'd learned that true strength wasn't in dominating but in being vulnerable enough to let someone in. No regrets. Gordon whispered against her lips. "Not a single one," Karen whispered back. "Because sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. Sometimes standing up for yourself opens doors you didn't even know existed. And sometimes the coldest hearts just need the right person to thaw them." Karen Reynolds had walked into a conference room expecting to be fired and walked out having changed her entire life. She'd stood up when everyone else stayed silent, spoken truth when it would have been easier to stay quiet, and refused to accept defeat when it would have been safer to surrender. And in doing so, she discovered that real love isn't about perfection or easy choices. It's about two people willing to fight for each other, to challenge each other, to build something together that's stronger than what either could create alone. As the yacht sailed into the sunset, carrying them toward their honeymoon and their future, Karen leaned against Gordon's chest and smiled. She'd spent 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days building her career at Richardson Technologies. But it only took one moment of courage to change everything. So let me ask you again, what would you do if you were in that conference room? Would you stay silent, or would you speak up? And what would you do if you fell in love with someone who could complicate your entire career? Drop your answers in the comments below and tell us where you're watching from. If this story moved you, if it made you believe in the power of courage and second chances, smash that subscribe button right now. We've got more incredible stories of love, courage, and unexpected transformations coming your way, and tomorrow's story is one you absolutely won't want to miss. Until then, remember, sometimes the most powerful word you can say is no, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is risk everything for love. See you in the next one.